The BYD Shark 6 has had the plug-in hybrid pickup truck segment to itself, until now. Meet the GWM Cannon Alpha PHEV, which has a bigger battery, a bigger engine, and can tow 3.5 tonnes, considerably more than the BYD Shark 6. But it's also more expensive, so I'm going to test out how they drive on and off-road and how efficiently they do it. I'm going to see how versatile they are and what they're like to live with to hopefully crown a winner. And there's another question I want to answer. Is the ubiquitous SUV under threat from an avalanche of family-friendly utes like these? Let's get to it. The BYD Shark 6 has been winning a lot of friends lately with its sharp pricing, upmarket interior, high-tech powertrain and jack-of-all-trades approach. It's good on the road, capable on the rough stuff and is easy to live with. It's a very solid all-rounder. Last time out, the Shark was the challenger when it took on the Ford Ranger Wildtrak. Click the link for that comparison. But now it's the top dog and becomes the challengee as fellow Chinese car giant GWM deploys its latest heavy weapon, Cannon Alpha PHEV. Both vehicles are high-riding 5-seat utes or pickup trucks that ditch diesel engines for turbo petrol electric hybrid powertrains. But unlike the Shark, the Cannon Alpha has one e-motor instead of two, and its driveline execution is quite different, which we'll get into. Like the Shark, however, it's big, heavy and powerful, has a premium interior fit-out with lots of bells and whistles, and is likewise very competent on and off-road. But it's more expensive than the Shark, to the tune of around $9,000. So already at this early juncture in the race, the Shark is pulling ahead because, as the old saying goes, money talks and bullshit walks.
How can bullshit walk?
While there is only one Shark model grade at the moment, dubbed Premium, there are two flavours of Cannon Alpha, Luxe and Ultra. Today we're testing the top spec Ultra. Options are minimal. The BYD has just one, the deep sea blue paintwork, which costs $700. Premium paint in this one is $600, but this marble white is free. When it comes to warranty provisions, BYD has upped its game significantly with a blanket 6-year warranty, removing the peculiar caveats that covered some car components for 3 years. The GWM has a stronger 7-year warranty with no limit on the distance driven, plus it has far better roadside assistance. However, servicing is more expensive, averaging about $650 a year versus the BYD's $500 per year. Battery warranties are the same at 8 years, although once again, GWM doesn't put a limit on the distance travelled. Matching the other dual cab competitors, the Shark 6 features a robust ladder chassis, though you won't find a locking diff, low range transfer case or traditional off-road mechanicals here. Instead, it manages traction through software solutions and terrain-specific modes that control its dual electric motors, with one driving each axle. The vehicle also abandons the leaf spring live rear axle configuration favoured by most diesel utes for a fully independent rear suspension system. Now, those conventional utes that use leaf springs and live rear axles do so for load lugging capacity. Most of them will do a ton. This one does a fair bit less than that. So the question is this more a shopping mall cruiser than an Outback Explorer?
A little from column A, a little from column B.
Equipped with highway terrain Continental cross-contact RX tyres, shod to 18-inch alloy wheels, it's optimised for tarmac driving, but they aren't too bad off-road. It has 230mm of ground clearance and a 700mm water fording depth, and the exterior design is boxy and muscular with eye-catching LED lights that add a smidge of modern flair. The GWM also rides on a ladder chassis, and while it's a little bit shorter overall, it has a longer wheelbase, which liberates a little bit more interior room. GWM's Cannon Alpha adheres to a more traditional ute configuration, with centre, front and rear locking diffs for heavy-duty off-road use and low-range gearing for high-torque crawling. It's suspended by coil springs front and rear, but unlike its rival with fully independent rear suspension, this one has a live rear axle. Tyres? Similar highway terrain rubber to the BYD, but in this case, the 18-inch rims support Gitti X-Cross hoops, which are from a lesser-known company. Some say Gitty is shitty, but they're actually reasonable on and off-road. It has 20mm less ground clearance at 210 mils, but a deeper wading depth of 800mm. The overall design aesthetic of the GWM is more conventional than the BYD, and I reckon it's got a bit more road presence when parked and in motion, and I quite like the headlight clusters, which have a hint of Ford F-150 about them. The Shark 6's 1.5 litre turbo petrol engine might sound a bit puny on its own, but when teamed with a pair of e-motors, it delivers serious punch. It'll go from 0 to 100 in less than 6 seconds, claims BYD. That is very fast for a 2.7 tonne brute. There's no denying the Shark 6's pace, but even with 650 Newton meters of torque on tap, its towing maxes out at 2,500 kilograms, which is about 1,000 kilograms less than most diesel rivals. And that one. It runs in all-wheel drive pretty much all the time, except in eco mode when the rear electric motor is switched off and drive is funneled to the wheels via a single speed reduction gear set. The e-motors draw energy from a 29 kilowatt-hour LFP battery, fast charging at up to 55 kilowatts. We squeezed 81 kilometers of EV range from a full charge, with a combined range of around 800 kilometers using both battery and the 60-litre fuel tank. Diesel utes go further, but aren't as fast as this. The GWM has a larger 2-litre turbo petrol engine that drives all 4 wheels, pumping through a conventional 9-speed automatic transmission. While it develops similar power levels to the BYD, it pumps out an extra 100 Newton meters of torque when both the petrol and electric motors join forces. While the extra thrust and a traditional transmission help it tow 3,500 kilograms, 1,000 more than the BYD, it's not as quick in a straight line. Sure, it puts all diesel utes to shame and has seriously muscular acceleration, but its 2.8 tonne curb mass, which is 100 kilograms more than the Shark, certainly blunts performance a bit. It only gets one e-motor, which is located inside the transmission, but it draws power from a larger 37 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion NCM battery pack. Fast charging the battery maxes out at 50 kilowatts, 5 kilowatts lower than the Shark, and we managed to get 77 kilometers of EV range from a full charge, roughly the same for both vehicles in that respect. That said, our testing showed the BYD charged slightly faster. The GWM has a 75-litre fuel tank, which is 15 litres more than the Shark, so in theory, it should deliver a longer combined cruising range. When you climb into the Shark 6's cabin, it becomes manifestly clear this is not your average ute. For starters, the material quality everywhere you look, everywhere you touch is really, really good. There's plenty of surprise and delight features, and the whole kit and caboodle feels really solid and tightly screwed together. Honestly, it's more high-tech lounge suite than bush-bashing brute, with plush materials just about everywhere, starting with the seats, which are covered in soft synthetic leather. The cushioning is firm and both front seats are power adjustable, heated and cooled, and high-quality materials continue across the doors and dash, wrapped in a tough fabric-like material, complete with overt orange stitching for a bit of razzle-dazzle. All the buttons and dials actuate with precision, and the gear shifter looks like it belongs in a concept car. The toggle controls are a nice touch, and the orange air vent surrounds add a little visual drama as well. Oh, and the 12-speaker Denaudio sound system, legitimately impressive, especially for a ute. There's plenty of elbow room in here. I really like the ability to sort of just get comfy. There's plenty of width in the vehicle, and I really like the steering wheel, except for one little ergonomic issue. When you're doing the old wax on and wax off, the heel of my hand sometimes hits this button, which it's done right now, and all of a sudden it's popping up with Spotify issues, and it can be a little distracting when you're doing tight car parks and reversing and stuff like that. But the steering wheel in general has a premium feel, and the mode scrollers are so intuitive, even my technophobe uncle could figure them out.
I think I got it, but just in case, tell me the whole thing again, I wasn't listening.
Storage game is strong in the Shark. It starts with this central bin. It's quite deep. You can get some big bottles in there. Let's check it out. Boom, easy. And it's got USB-A, USB-C, and a 12-volt socket for all your charging needs. You've got 2 spring-loaded cup holders. They also fit the 750ml bottle, that's good. You can put your stimulating caffeinated beverages in there as well. Here, a little bit of room for odds and sods. You can put 2 phones there if you like. They're sort of grooved so they won't move around. Plus, on one side, it's a 50-watt wireless phone charger with a little fan so it won't cook your phone if you're doing wireless Apple CarPlay and charging at the same time. The glove box is a little small, but 2 other areas pick up the slack. There's a little area in there, plus you've got the sunglasses holder as well. And over here, the door pockets, they fit the 1 litre Mega Gulp with a bit of a push, and I can get the other bottle in there too. Not too bad. The Shark 6 has a significantly more advanced technology suite than traditional diesel-powered rivals. But if you're not used to the latest high-tech gadgets, you might feel like you're drowning in digital soup here. The interface throws so many menus and options at you that new users might need a search party to dim the super bright screen at night. But it does get easier the more you use it. A good example of this is the 3-finger drag shortcut. This way adjusts fan speed, this way adjusts temperature, and it's an elegant fix. But if no one shows you how to do this hack, or you just simply forget about it, the menu system can feel a bit clunky. The big 15.6-inch central touchscreen is a monster, way bigger than most others in its class, and it even has a cool party trick that makes reading the satellite navigation much easier. On top of that, it's got super high-def visuals and impressive refresh and response times. There's clearly a powerful processor hidden away in there. You've got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto if you don't want to use the native system. But I do like how much tinkering you can do across the ute systems, from infotainment to vehicle hardware and battery charging. There's also a fine-looking 10.25-inch digital driver's display, although many utes now come with a system like this. And to be honest, this one doesn't have a lot of customization or a lot of trip computer data. However, the head-up display is very, very good, and not many utes have one of these. It's got all the vital statistics you need right in your line of sight. The reversing camera system delivers a sharp, crisp video feed from the ute's various camera lenses. Plus there's a 3D mode to customize the view. And I like how it actually shows you measurements in centimeters as you creep towards obstacles, so you'll know exactly how close you are to that tree or person behind you. Okay, now we're in the GWM, and it doesn't feel too far off the pace. It's comfortable, it's really welcoming, there's loads of tech, but right away, there's one thing that really irks me. This plasticky trim. What's that? 1994? You want your decor back? Look, it's not an optical nightmare, but would it have killed them to stick with just one shade? Move beyond the ghastly petrified wood highlights and there's a lot to like. The power-operated seats are a little wider and more accommodating, but the leather-accented upholstery isn't quite as supple as the BYDs, which also have slightly better support. The overall layout of the cabin is a little bit easier to digest at first glance as well, and there's more physical controls for frequently used operations like fan control here and heated and cooled seats here. Material quality isn't quite to the high standard of the BYD, and while the buttons and dials don't have that vibrant tactility, there are some standout areas, such as the soft white headlining, the door inserts and dash plastics. The gear shifter has a concept car look as well, but it is a bit clunkier to use. Both cars have a premium look and feel, but it could be argued the GWM just misses the mark in comparison due to a few budget luxury elements, such as this trim. But I will say this, the GWM is a bit bigger and more welcoming, and it's a comfortable long-distance cruiser, especially if you're sitting in the back. The steering wheel has a simpler control layout and 2 programmable shortcut buttons, which are handy for making phone calls or bringing up 360-degree surround view cameras. The 10-speaker Infinity sound system delivers impressive audio quality for a ute and has richer bass levels, but it distorts slightly more at higher volumes than the BYD. Storage cubbies are many and varied, starting with this section in here, not quite as big as the tub in the Shark, but it does have a little air conditioning port, so you can cool down this area, keep your drinks chilly. It's also got this sliding removable little section there, which is cool. You've got 2 spring-loaded cup holders. They're deeply recessed, but they do fit the 750ml drink bottle, which is good to see. Over here, there's not a lot of incidental storage, just a concealed wireless phone charger, which doesn't have the little coolie fan. And I did notice a few times Apple CarPlay while charging the phone. Gets really hot, CarPlay started screwing up a bit, took the phone off the charger, fixed itself right up. Hot phones start screwing up. Anyway, glove box here. There's no little shelf there, but it makes up for it with the sunglasses holder and a couple of secret stashes. There's one under here with 2 USB-A ports and a 12-volt socket, and another little secret stash here, which I love. But annoyingly, this car has no USB-C ports. It's all USB-A, which kind of gives you a clue as to the age of this donor car. Might be getting a bit long in the tooth. Finally, door pockets. They fit the 1 litre mega gulp with a bit of a shove, and we can get the 750ml bottle in there too. Not too bad. Although the 14.6-inch touchscreen is a little smaller, doesn't rotate, and isn't as responsive as the BYD, it's still a very good setup for a ute. The visuals are clear and sharp, the native GPS sat-nav works well, and like the BYD, verbal commands are quite effective for the most part. The menu layout is more intuitive than the BYD, so cruising through all the different systems and finding things you need is a little easier at first, and it also gets a shortcut menu. Wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are also in there, and it's impressive how much customization you can effect across the Ute systems as well, from infotainment to vehicle hardware and also battery charging. This one has a larger 12.3-inch digital driver's display that looks really good, but again, like the Shark, the data you have available to you and the customization is pretty average. But again, it's redeemed by that head-up display, which has cruise control, navigation and speed limit information right in your line of sight. The reversing camera system doesn't have quite the visual detail of its rival, but it does have a few different modes that come in handy when parking a 5.4 metre long ute. It also gets the centimetres gauge when reversing close to obstacles, and the see-through mode is one of the best I've used. Even when you change drive modes, it doesn't even change the visuals on the screen, but you do get cool sound effects. Both cars come with all the fruit, and while the BYD is more polished in the way it looks and feels, the GWM is a wider vehicle and is slightly more spacious. Both vehicles have a 5-star ANCAP safety rating recorded in 2025, and both have 7 airbags, which is not class leading in the ute segment. That said, they do come with all the latest safety tech, some of which hinders just as much as it helps. The back seats of the BYD are a step above most traditional utes, not only in the space available. I've got pretty good headroom, I've got pretty good legroom, I can get my feet under the seats, but also in terms of comfort as well. The seats aren't bolt upright and they're really comfy as well. And it's one of those things, in a lot of ways, this feels more like sitting in the back of a family SUV than, you know, a rough and ready ute. Amenity is also really good, and one of my favorite things is the 230-watt power point. So you can plug in whatever you want back there. I've been using it to charge my laptop, so you can do work on the road. If you're out somewhere remote, it's great. Plus, there's also lots of other features. You've got the touch button reading lights, the grab handles here, another grab handle with the coat hooks, seat back pockets, you've got door pockets, fold out armrests with cup holders. You can get nice and comfy. Of course, you've also got the twin adjustable air vents and USB A and C ports. It's a pretty good setup back here. There are dual ISOFIX child seat anchorages, and you can flip the seat back to reach the top tether points and lift the seat base too. But don't go looking for hidden storage. There isn't any. While the BYD has been edging ahead thus far, the GWM makes up ground with this class-leading back seat. I've got a little bit more legroom than the BYD, similar headroom. Comfort levels are a little bit better. The seats are a bit more contoured and the headrests are a bit softer, but it's the amenity that goes above and beyond. Where do we start? How about the power reclining back seats? When you dial this all the way back, it is super comfortable back here. You could go on a long distance cruise, no problem. But it doesn't finish there. Check out this fold out armrest. Cash dash, nice. Cup holders, cool, but a wireless phone charger as well. Very nice, very comfortable. And there's more. Heated and cooled back seats. How good is that? Lots and lots of comfort features, and the passenger who sits here has a little separate control panel here to adjust the front passenger seat, so you can give yourself even more legroom. Very cool. This Chinese Chariot truly takes luxury SUV mimicry to a new level. And there's even a power-operated peephole for Doggo back here to get some fresh air. Or you can open it up when your gym bros have let out a protein fart. Woo.
You smell that? What is that?
Opportunity.
No.
There's even secret stash drawers under the seats, and it gets a large powered sunroof as well. Cop that, BYD. Small touches like coat hooks, reading lights, double grab handles, seat back pockets, air vents and twin USB-A ports are also in there, but there's no 12-volt socket or power point like in the Shark. The seat backs also fold down to access the top tethers, plus there's a pair of ISOFIX child seat anchorages to make this a family taxi if you want. The BYD has a power latching rear tailgate. You hit this twice, and if you hit it too fast, it doesn't work. You've got to hit it a little bit slower. That's nice, and it's damped, and it opens up a large tray. This is pretty big, and whether you're using it for work or weekend Bunnings runs, you've got a lot of flexibility here too. Plus, it's also fairly well kitted out. You've got a good spray in bed liner, and push button LEDs are really nice. They're really bright, and you might be able to see under here, the LEDs are on there too, so you can light up the whole load area. That's really effective. You've only got 6 tie-down points, so they're a bit thin on the ground, and there's no rail system like you get on the Ranger. But one extra little thing, the tailgate is quite light, and when you shut it, the lights turn off as well. Not bad. My measurements show the tailgate opening is 1,360 millimeters, while the distance between the wheel arches is 1,190 millimeters and height is 530 millimeters. The bed is also reasonably long at 1,550 millimeters. A 790 kilogram payload and 2,500 kilogram towing? Yeah, not exactly top of the ute class. However, as we discovered, the Shark is a very good tow rig at those levels. But a trio of 2,000 watt power outlets, or V2L if you're fluent in EV speak, flip the script by letting you power up a fridge, charge up tool batteries, or even run an air compressor without breaking a sweat. Total campsite flex. Alrighty, the GWM's tailgate is a bit interesting. There are 3 ways to get your gear in the back. You can toss it in, like with the BYD. You can hit this button once. What? No, that didn't work. We'll try again. You can hit this button once, and it opens barn style, which is, that's pretty handy. It's different. You can hit it twice, and it should open like that. Okay, that's good. And it's pretty neat when it works. As I've discovered, it doesn't always work the way it should, and sometimes the button gets stuck in its housing, gets a little shy. Anyway. The tray is slightly smaller in every dimension than the BYD, with its 1,500 millimeter length being 50 millimeters shorter. It's slightly narrower between the wheel arches at 1,100 millimeters, slightly lower at 510 millimeters high, and the tailgate opening is 1,310 millimeters between these latches. Because the battery eats up a big chunk of real estate under the tray, the spare wheel's been shifted topside. And yeah, it's going to be annoying and possibly a deal breaker for those who cherish tray space. Amenity in the tray ain't great either. You've only got 3 tie-down points because the spare tyre blocks one of them. There's no extra lighting like in the Shark, and although it does have that spray-in bed liner, payload is only 685 kilograms. To be honest, a bit limp and less than what the Shark can carry. However, it does counterpunch with that 3.5 tonne towing capacity. But bear in mind, if you're hauling the full 3.5 tonnes, you've only got about 300 kilograms of legal wiggle room for passengers and gear. That's because of its 6,745 kilogram gross combined mass. It's got V2L like the Shark, but the execution isn't as elegant. You'll have to go fossicking for the adapter cable. But hey, it's more flexible with a longer lead, silver linings and all that. It also packs 3 power points, each with 2,000 watts or 2 kilowatts, just like the BYD. So you've got a total of 6 kilowatts, so you can charge your power tool batteries, chill your beers, or keep that air compressor huffing like a dragon. Smaller touches like the weatherproofed flashlight storage cubbies are pretty cool too. There's no denying the GWM has some unique features, but it's just not as polished as the Shark, and that theme continues on the road. The BYD Shark 6 is a slick operator. And coming back to that initial thinking, it does feel and it does drive more like an SUV than a conventional ute. It's quieter, it's smoother, and it never feels unruly or cumbersome whether you're in the suburbs or out in the country. The dual E-motors dish out forceful, no-nonsense thrust off the line and when overtaking. No hesitation, just clean thrust. You've got 3 drive modes in this high-tech ute: Eco, Normal and Sport, and Sport definitely turns things up a notch. Indeed, for something that weighs 2.7 tonnes, it's got fearsome pace, bolting from the stalls like a thoroughbred at the Melbourne Cup. But this is a different kind of horsepower. It's mostly electric, so it's instant and it's compelling. And it also helps disguise the Shark 6's portly weight. This thing is heavy. While the petrol engine chimes in now and then to charge the battery or offer a bit more shove, the vehicle drives like an EV for all intents and purposes. There's no changing gears and it's all very seamless. This makes it effortless to drive around the suburbs and especially in town. And the jacked up ride height gives you an excellent view of your surroundings, no matter the environment. On the open road, the BYD feels solid and secure, although it does use a fair bit of its suspension travel over smooth undulations. It simply cannot hide from its heavy mass. You can't cheat physics. This makes it reluctant to rapidly change direction, but the BYD holds its own fairly well for the most part, with a composed ride and minimal body roll through corners. Refinement levels are very good for a big and buffy ute. It's really quiet in the cabin, and if you've grown up around diesel-powered utes, this will be a revelation. And being able to flick between EV and hybrid modes is a neat trick, and genuinely handy in the real world. The Shark's computer brain keeps at least 25% battery charge in reserve so that you never run the battery fully dead. Can you imagine what it would be like trundling around in a 2.7 tonne ute with just a tiny 1.5 litre turbo engine pushing it around? It just would not work. Overall, BYD has applied a new way of thinking around dual cab utes, and this is forcing a step change for the old guard. So yeah, it's fair to say the Shark 6 sets a pretty high watermark, and GWM knows this. In fact, it's openly admitted that the priority is toppling the game-changing BYD. Ambitious? Definitely, but I like it, even if the reality on tarmac doesn't quite match the bold claim. However, the GWM is better than the Shark in some respects, and our testing reveals it has a slight edge in terms of ride quality compared to the Shark, which is a feat in itself. Around town, it has a softer personality and a slightly more compliant nature. And just like the Shark 6, it's easy to live with in the suburbs and the exurbs, which is impressive given its considerable size and weight. It doesn't feel clumsy or ungainly. In terms of the GWM Cannon Alpha's powertrain, it's not quite as refined or punchy as the BYD, and there's a slight hesitation when pulling away. But after that tiny delay, it feels plenty muscular. That's because there's a 9-speed automatic transmission between the powertrain and the wheels, where the Shark 6 has more of a direct drive system. The Shark feels like an EV with a generator, and the Cannon is more of a conventional ute with a battery tacked on and an integrated E-motor. It gets the job done, but it's just not executed quite as seamlessly. It doesn't feel quite as sophisticated. The switch between petrol and electric power in the GWM is more noticeable than in the BYD, and when the engine is going, it's also just a little bit louder as well. When it comes to outright pace, the Shark takes the cake, but the Cannon Alpha certainly doesn't disgrace itself or bring dishonour to its family. In terms of handling dynamics, the GWM pickup truck comes close to the Shark 6, but it's not quite as agile overall. It's got a little bit more body roll through the corners, and the Gitty tyres aren't quite as grippy as the Contis in the Shark. That said, the Gittys aren't shitty. There's slightly more reverb or scuttle shake through the chassis as well, but it's not a deal breaker, just something noticeable when testing them back to back. As mentioned, urban ride comfort in the GWM is better than the Shark, but as the speeds rise, that advantage evens out. So ride comfort at highway speeds is still good, in the Cannon Alpha PHEV, but it's also good in the Shark as well. You don't sit quite as high off the road in the GWM, but the view is still commanding. This ain't no small fry. This is a proper big rig. Okie dokie, seems like there's a little issue with the spare wheel cover. Looks like it wants to be set free. Might need to sort that out. GWM later told us this particular spare tyre cover was a stopgap measure for press vehicles, and that additional straps have been added to ensure the correct fitment and hold for customer cars. We certainly hope so, because this solution is pathetic. So that wheel cover has come off 3 times now, and it seems that speeds of 100, 110 kilometers an hour are not its friend. The air gets up inside it and whooshka. It's interesting to note that while the BYD sustains its battery at 25%, the GWM lets you dip down to 15% before firing up the petrol engine. That said, both offer around 80 kilometers of real-world EV range, so it's a fairly close match there. But in pure EV mode, the GWM feels noticeably lazier off the line. When it comes to fuel efficiency, both utes claim to use around 2 litres per 100 kilometres, but this ain't the Matrix, and in the real world, where contrived laboratory testing means nothing, they're both pushing more than 9 litres per 100 kilometres. That's a big difference right there, and not that dissimilar to diesel utes, but ultimately there's almost nothing between them in terms of efficiency. They do their best work around town and in built-up areas when the battery is fully charged, but because they weigh so much and are about as aerodynamic as a cinder block, high speeds are not their friend. In terms of autonomous driving functionality, the BYD is a little bit better. The lane keep assist, the adaptive cruise control is just a little bit more precise, a little bit more assertive. That said, it makes more beeps and bleeps. It's constantly telling you, do this, don't do this, whereas the GWM has actually dialed them back. It's listened to consumer and critical feedback, and in the last 12 months, it's done a really good job of making this far less annoying than it used to be. There is one annoying thing about the GWM though, and that is at night, the screen reflects off the rear window, which, yeah, it's pretty noticeable. GWM has come a long way, and this is a very respectable hybrid ute, but the Shark 6 has an extra layer of sophistication to the way it drives. In fact, this applies to the product as a whole. But can high-tech computing power beat a traditional mechanical setup? Let's find out. On the gravel, the BYD is pretty handy. It feels predictable and sure-footed, but the GWM's slightly softer suspension and slower steering gives it more composure on dirt tracks, even on the cheaper Gitty tyres. All right, let's check out the hill descent control. Bash this button here, feed off throttle and brake, and over we go. That's not too bad. Here we go, hill descent control set on a much slower speed. That's better. Proper crawling. All right, water splash time. Gone through here a few times. Yep, all good. Everything in this vehicle is very tightly sealed, so there shouldn't be any issues there. 230 millimeters of ground clearance means you can be pretty gung-ho. That said, wheel articulation is worse than in the GWM, so the car's software and electronics need to work overtime to keep up with your ambition. It's still pushing through though. It's not like it's been stumped at any point. I really like that at slow speeds, the camera system switches on. So you've got the 360 bird's eye view, front camera going as well. Very handy on sketchy sections like this. All right, time for the chassis bender, and this is going to be interesting. It's been raining a lot in the last few weeks, and this is washed out. This looks a lot more intense than usual. So we're in mountain mode. Let's give it a go. Ooh, yeah, it's struggling for purchase a little bit. Feel like I've got to modulate the throttle quite a lot. If I just hold it in the one position, it tends to struggle a little bit. It needs a lot more modulation. I'd be hoping to just keep it in one spot. Oh, here we go. It's quite a firm suspension setup, bouncing around, pogoing a little bit. Ooh, bit of a grind on the side steps there, but haha, yes, that is impressive. In isolation, this vehicle does very, very well. Look, while the BYD is struggling for traction here and there, these are highway terrain tyres. It's doing, pretty well. Oi. Some people say the Shark is a bit of a fish out of water off-road, but I gotta say, I reckon it's pretty impressive. Overall, the Shark is capable enough for moderate off-roading, and a pair of all-terrain tyres would work wonders if you're planning on pushing harder. The aftermarket world already has lots of options to make it more rugged in the bush. All right, in the GWM Cannon Alpha PHEV, and right away it feels more at home in the rough stuff, that slightly softer suspension. It's smoother over all the undulations and bumps. It doesn't feel as firm. Might turn that off. And there's a feeling right away that it's going to be more suited to mud plugging and rock climbing right out of the box. It just feels a bit more at home. This feels more like its natural habitat. And even on its gitty tyres, it's moving through the same obstacles more easily, where mechanical traction is compensating for tyre grip. And despite the slightly worse approach angle, it's walking through these sections a lot more easily. All right, let's see how we go. And unlike the BYD, this one doesn't have mountain mode, rock mode, mud mode. It's just chuck it in 4 high, which I've done, and it's moving pretty well. I am going to lock the rear diff because it's a little bit slippery, a little bit muddy up here. And I like the fact that this does have a lot more control over the chassis. I've got 4 low, I've got the front locking diff. I could do a few more things with the vehicle. Now this first section here, the BYD struggled with traction and it pogoed around a bit. That is so much smoother. Went up at first time. That better wheel articulation than the Shark 6 means you've got more contact and more traction more of the time. Another thing I'm noticing as well, the BYD was scrabbling for grip. It was like I sort of had to give it more throttle, come off the throttle. This one, much better throttle modulation. I just held it at about 10-15% and it crawled through that section really easily. It definitely feels more intuitive off-road. It's a little bit more confidence inspiring for sure. All right, hill descent control, where are we? Over here, hit that button, and let's do it. Pretty similar to the BYD, not a huge amount of difference there. It's possibly a little bit fast. I wouldn't mind it if it was a bit slower, but there you go, can't win them all. Hill descent control works fine. That's good. I'll flick that off now. And the water splash. No issues yet. There's still time for the hybrid systems to completely be frazzled. I hope that doesn't happen though. I'm also noticing you don't have to be quite as circumspect with your lines and approaches to various challenges and obstacles in the GWM. The Borg-Warner 4x4 system is very effective. Definitely better than the software-based system in the BYD. There's no hesitation, it just finds its way through and it's all doing it in a more smooth and seamless manner. There's definitely more slip in the BYD. This one has barely spun a wheel at all. And it's almost like the Cannon Alpha goads you into pushing further. Let's see what we can do. Whereas in the BYD, it's a little bit more hesitant. Oh, are you sure about that? Should we try that? It's very interesting feeling the difference between that software-based system and a mechanical system. This one is far more competent. So the GWM also pops on with the camera displays, the off-road camera displays. I've got the 360 above, and I've also got the clear chassis view, which is really good. A little bit mud splattered now, but it does make it really easy to place your wheels, especially on tight little sections. All right, it's time for the chassis bender, and I might chuck it in neutral and fall low. Okay, you get a little sound effect. And it's in. That was pretty quick. Nice. All right, let's give it a go. And see how it fares. It actually has less ground clearance than the BYD, so I'm a little worried about scraping the undercarriage, but it's definitely coming through this a little smoother, a little more seamlessly. Oh, little scrape of the side steps, but yeah, okay. That was definitely less stressful. There was less pogoing on the suspension. The GWM's more malleable suspension really does give it better purchase and better traction off-road, and it's just making mincemeat out of these runs. It doesn't look like it's gonna be as good as, say, a Ranger Raptor, but it's not bad. The GWM is a far more capable bush basher than the BYD, and if off-road competency is important to you, the Cannon Alpha will be a better choice. That said, the BYD can do about 70% of what its competitor can, and apart from towing, it outclasses the GWM across almost every other metric. Put it this way, it feels like the BYD has been to finishing school, while the GWM has a few rough edges that still need to be ironed out. That said, compared to what's come before from GWM, the progress is tangible. This is a genuinely impressive step up from a brand that's clearly on the rise. They've even brought in Holden's former ride and handling guru to fine-tune its vehicles. Circling back to my question around SUVs being under threat, I'm not entirely convinced these utes are a direct replacement just yet, but they are closing the gap, and golly gee, they're so much better off-road. I've really enjoyed spending time in these utes, and I reckon change is not always a bad thing. They both prove that innovative powertrains shouldn't be ignored. Ultimately, the BYD is the better all-round vehicle. It's a more complete package, and given that it is considerably cheaper, it's hard to bet against it. It might feel like deja vu with the Shark 6 taking the win again, but it strikes a compelling balance between work and play and is still one of the best utes on the market today. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video. Feel free to subscribe, like, and what do you reckon? Are you ready to jump on the Chinese ute bandwagon? Have your say in the comments below.